Okay, so you're expecting, congrats. It's so exciting. But with all the changes happening, I bet you're starting to wonder like, hey, is this like a real baby bump or is it just, you know?
It's a question I hear a lot, and it makes sense. There's so much going on in there. So let's break it down. What exactly is creating that adorable baby bump?
Yes. Let's unpack this. What I've always pictured is like a mini watermelon tucked under a shirt. But it's got to be more to it than that, right?
You're on the right track. It's definitely more than just the baby size those first few months. It's really about your uterus changing. It's kind of like a pear ripening, if you will. It starts small, tucked away in your pelvic region, but as it grows, it expands upwards and outwards, eventually pushing against your abdominal wall, and that's when you start to see that telltale roundness.
Wow. Okay, so when does that usually start happening timing-wise? Because I bet it's different for everyone, right?
You're right, everyone is different, but around week
Mhm.
12 is when most women start to notice a difference in how their clothes are fitting, even if it's not super obvious to everyone else quite yet.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's what I'm really curious about. At that stage, how does it feel different on the inside? Because, I mean, we've all got belly fat, right? So how do you know it's not just that?
That's a great question, and you're right, in those early weeks, it can be hard to tell the difference just from touch. The uterus at that point is still pretty low down. But here's the thing. As the baby grows, around week 20 or so, you start to really feel those kicks and flutters, and that, my friend, is the real giveaway.
Oh, absolutely. It's pretty amazing to think that's a little human in there, right? You're literally feeling them come alive.
It is incredible. And as that pregnancy progresses, the amount of amniotic fluid surrounding the baby also increases. And that's not just for comfort, it's actually vital for their development and also contributes to that feeling of firmness in the baby bump.
Wow, I never even thought about it like that. So it's like this whole internal ecosystem expanding and the baby bump is like the outward sign of all that. But while that's happening, our bodies are going through other changes too, right? I mean, let's be real. Belly fat is a part of life for most of us.
Yeah.
And it's not like that disappears just because we're pregnant.
You're hitting the nail on the head. Our bodies are incredibly complex, and pregnancy hormones kind of complicate things further.
Okay, so let's talk about that. How does belly fat factor into all of this? Because I bet that's a big part of why we sometimes wonder, is it me or is it the baby?
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that belly fat is normal. It's a healthy part of our bodies. It provides energy, insulation, and it protects our organs.
Right. There's nothing to be ashamed of, pregnant or not.
Yeah.
So how can we tell the difference between that normal healthy fat and the baby bump, especially in those early stages when the movements aren't as pronounced?
One of the key differences is how it feels. Remember how we talked about the baby bump feeling firm, almost like a basketball? Well, belly fat is going to be much softer and squishier.
So like more of a gentle curve than like a defined bump.
Exactly. And while that baby bump is very specifically located, as the uterus expands, belly fat is usually more spread out, above and below the belly button.
So it's really about location, location, location.
It really is. It's kind of amazing how our bodies know just where to put it right. And, during pregnancy, those hormonal shifts we talked about earlier can actually influence where you gain that weight, too. It's all part of your body getting ready to nourish that little one.
Whoa, really? So it's not just random, it's like strategic. Like my body's literally getting ready for breastfeeding, even in those early months. That's wild.
It is wild, and it makes sense, right? Your body is going through so many changes to support a growing human. Storing energy in the form of fat is a key part of that preparation.
That's so cool. Okay, this is blowing my mind. But I can also see how like all these changes from the outward bump to these like internal shifts could feel overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely. It is a lot to process, both physically and emotionally.
Right. So in the spirit of processing it all, I wanted to talk about something I've heard a lot of expectant moms mention, and that's like taking progress photos. Have you found that to be a helpful practice for like embracing these changes?
I think it's a great idea. It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day of pregnancy and not really realize just how much your body is changing. So taking photos, even if it's just for yourself, can be a really powerful way to like track those changes and really appreciate what your body is capable of.
I love that because it's not just about documenting a growing belly. It's about
Yeah.
like honoring the whole experience, right?
Yeah.
The good, the weird, the miraculous.
Precisely. And it can be so empowering to look back on those photos later and see how far you've come.
Totally. And speaking of feeling empowered, I wanted to touch on something else that we mentioned earlier, and that's self-care. Because let's be honest, pregnancy can be tough on the body. So
Yeah.
prioritizing those moments of like rest and rejuvenation feels extra important. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Self-care during pregnancy isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And it doesn't have to be anything like elaborate or fancy. It can be as simple as taking a warm bath, reading a book, or like indulging in a prenatal massage.
Prenatal massages, those sound amazing. What are
Right.
some of the benefits of those specifically during pregnancy?
Oh, they're incredible. Not only do they just feel amazing, but they can really help alleviate some of those common pregnancy discomforts like
Mhm.
back pain, muscle tension, swelling. Plus, that gentle touch and relaxation can do wonders for your mental and emotional well-being, too.
I bet. It's like giving your body and mind permission to just let go for a bit, which I imagine is super important when you're carrying around so much extra weight and, a whole human being.
Exactly. Pregnancy is demanding both physically and emotionally. So taking the time for yourself allows you to recharge and, really show up as the best version of yourself.
I love that. It's like filling your own cup so you can nurture the little one growing inside of you. And it's not just about massages and baths, right? There are so many other ways to practice self-care during pregnancy.
Absolutely. Gentle exercise like prenatal yoga or swimming can be incredibly beneficial for both your physical and mental health.
And what about connecting with other moms or moms to be? I feel like that sense of community could be a huge form of self-care too. Have you found that to be true?
It really can. Just sharing, experiences, advice, even just venting with people who get it, it can be so validating and supportive. It reminds you that you're not alone in this.
Yeah, it's like you're building your own little village to raise that baby even before they're born.
I love that. And it's funny, as we've been like diving into these physical changes, the bump versus belly fat and these internal shifts, it really makes you realize pregnancy is about so much more than just the physical, right? You said it, it really is a complete transformation, mind, body, and spirit. Yes, your body is doing incredible things, but your mind is also preparing for motherhood. Your emotions are well, all over the place.
Totally. It's like you're becoming like this whole new version of yourself, which is beautiful, but also can be kind of daunting.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's so important to really acknowledge and honor like all aspects of the experience. The physical changes, while super fascinating, they're really just one part of this incredible journey that is pregnancy.
So well said. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today,
Hmm.
from the science behind that growing belly to the importance of self-care and, finding your village.
We have. It's been a pleasure exploring all this with you.
The feeling is mutual. You've given us so much to think about, and I hope our listeners feeling more informed, more empowered to embrace every step of their pregnancy journey. And you know me, I always like to leave our listeners with a little something to ponder. We talked about the physical changes, the emotional changes, but what about the spiritual side of pregnancy? That feeling of connection to something bigger than ourselves. That's a whole other deep dive waiting to happen.